The Battlefield series is famous for complicated Easter eggs. I normally cover Call of Duty Easter eggs on this channel, whether that's zombies or Warzone, and they are an absolute piece of cake compared to the things that we've seen in Battlefield. And now, even though the Battlefield 6 beta has only been available for a few days, people have started finding signs of an Easter egg, possibly one that we could solve within this beta, but we're going to need help. And so I don't get people's hopes up too much, I do have an alternative explanation for everything that we're seeing in this that could make the whole thing a lot less mysterious. But that version of events is a lot less fun, so I'll save that for the end of the video. So there's two elements to this Easter egg, and we don't know for sure whether they're connected, but they definitely seem to be, so I'll explain both of them. First of all, there's the radio. Some of you might have spotted these. There's one in the firing range that is just like a little black Bluetooth speaker type thing. It plays Battlefield music if you mess around with it a little bit. And then there's other bigger ones that look like they've got tape decks in the middle of them, and these are dotted around all of the different maps. Now that in itself is a little bit unusual because the maps obviously take place in very different places. There's one in Turkmenistan, there's one in Cairo, there's one in Gibraltar, there's one in New York, and they seem to use their own assets for most things. You know, a lot of the chairs look different, the wall decorations and things like that. But these radios all look the same, they're all the same model. Generally on the maps, the radios are just playing some kind of generic background music that's kind of fitting for the environment that they're in. So on the New York map, they'll be playing the sort of music you'd associate with New York, and on the map in Turkmenistan, they're playing music that you'd maybe associate with Turkmenistan and that area. But if you interact with these radios a few times, and not all of them can be interacted with, but most of them can, then they will change songs and eventually they'll start playing Battlefield songs.
Hostiles have the objective. New objective located.
These are Battlefield theme tunes from previous games. I've heard the one from Battlefield 1942, I think, and the one that I am pretty sure is from Battlefield 4. But I could be wrong because all of them kind of have a similar style to them. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be some people who think that's the Easter egg, that there are these radios and sometimes you can get them to play the Battlefield theme tunes. Like, that's a pretty cool little Easter egg by itself. But if you go onto Liberation Peak, which is the map that's set in Turkmenistan, you can actually find something a whole lot more interesting and cryptic. In the Conquest version of the map, around the E objective just in the corner, there's a radio like the other ones we've been talking about, and then there's this strange chart written on the wall. Now, as far as I know, this is the only place in the game that this is there. I did see a post originally that got me interested in this whole thing, saying it appears when you interact with the radio. I can confirm that's not true, it's there from the very beginning of the map. It can, however, be destroyed, so the radio can be destroyed, all of the radios can be destroyed if you hit them once, so be careful around them, and this chart can be destroyed if someone damages the wall that it's on. But the chart has 4 rows, and on each row there's a pairing of 2 words and then 2 numbers separated by a colon. The words are in Cyrillic and they seem to be in the language of Turkmenistan, so not Russian, although they look Russian because they're using the same alphabet, and they can be translated to real place names in Turkmenistan. Now here's where it gets even more confusing. These place names aren't precise locations. Some of them are cities in Turkmenistan, one of them's the capital city, and some of them are just kind of areas like a valley or a plateau or even a mountain range. So I'm sure there'll be some of you saying, oh, we need to get the coordinates of those areas or something like that, or we need someone to go to these areas. I'm pretty sure it's not that because they are very general regions. You know, if someone tells you, hey, go to the capital city of Turkmenistan and find something related to Battlefield, you know, that's a ridiculous thing to do. But anyway, we have the place names and I've tried drawing a line between all of the ones that are paired up and you get this shape. I'm not sure if this means anything. I'm not sure if this represents anything, but that's kind of as far as I can get with that. Then we have the numbers, which look a bit like times, but they can't be because some of the numbers are too big. So we can't use anything to do with that. Some people have suggested they could be the chapters and verses of various holy books. Maybe, but it doesn't seem like there's anything particularly specific or useful in any of the ones that I've looked at. People have talked about United Nations, Charter, I don't know what they are, regulations, commandments, agreements, something, things from the United Nations. Maybe, obviously a lot of those are to do with war, but pretty much everything the United Nations talks about is somehow related to war, so I'm not sure if that's useful. One idea I had is, could we find radios around Liberation Peak? Because there are a bunch of radios. I think there's around 6 radios around Liberation Peak. If we could find 5 of them, because that's how many locations there are on the chart, and somehow they could be overlaid on a map so they're in similar locations to where the places are that I showed you on Google Earth, then maybe you have to interact with each radio for that many seconds. Maybe that's an idea, but the problem is, so far, the people on the Battlefield Easter Eggs Discord have managed to find 6 radios on Liberation Peak, but 2 of them you can't interact with at all. And I can't see a way to make them kind of match up to where these locations are on a map. Now, there is one explanation that's a lot more disappointing and less exciting, but Brug on my Discord was looking into this and he actually found another piece of text which is also written in the same language. Here's a screenshot of it, and that says, "It would be better if we played football. Guys from Dushanbe learn the game first." Now, the area that you find that first message on has been sort of co-opted as a parking lot, I guess, or a supply yard for the military. But if you look at the floor, you can see that there are markings on there, clearly marking out a basketball court. So I'm starting to think the most likely explanation for this is that it's not an Easter egg at all, and that actually this is just various teams noting down their basketball scores. So you can see each one has a matchup of 2 locations from Turkmenistan, so it could be the soldiers from those locations making up teams, and then they've got their scores next to them. In which case, there's nothing that we need to do. The radios are completely unrelated other than the fact that maybe some people like to listen to music when they're playing basketball, and there's not an Easter egg in the beta after all, which would be a real shame. Although, it is still a nice little bit of environmental storytelling, and I appreciate that stuff in games. I'd love to see more of it. Apologies for the disappointing ending, but I thought that was a fun little journey to go on anyway. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.